Hello, Miss Daly. I'm the chaplain. Could I ask you a question? Who do you have to make medical decisions for you if you can't speak for yourself? Okay. Would you like to fill that out on a form called the Power of Attorney for Healthcare? It only takes a couple of minutes, and I'll bring you back 2 copies that are good anywhere in Illinois, or any veterinarian. I don't know about the veterinarian part. Don't quote me on that, but it's good anywhere in Illinois. In the previous video on advanced directives, you learned to be relaxed and to come up with a short phrase to ask patients about the power of attorney for healthcare form. You're helping patients to do something important for them, but it's something that most people don't think about until they're sick. Advanced care planning. Welcome to Dharma for Doctors, Spiritual Care for Caregivers. I'm your host, Chaplain Greg Holden. This episode will be pretty straightforward. We're going to fill out the Illinois Healthcare Power of Attorney form so you can understand what's in it. I refer you to the preceding video in this series, which I'm linking to above, for an introduction to advanced directives. This video is primarily aimed at doctors, but it can be for social workers, chaplains, or anyone who needs to fill out the form with people. And if you're an individual who has not filled out the Power of Attorney form for health care for yourself, you'll learn how to fill out the form too. Just don't sign or witness it. You need to sign it in front of someone who is a designated witness, and I'll say more about witnessing below. There are different forms for every state, and they differ in their details, but the basic parts are the same. So you should refer to your own state's form. You can find links to the various forms on the AARP website, which I'm linking to in the description also. No doubt if you work in a hospital or nursing home, you've got copies there that you can refer to. To begin, there's a set of instructions. In Illinois, these are pretty lengthy. I wonder if anyone reads the whole instructions. I do make sure the patient gets a copy of the instructions so they can read them when they get home. I don't go through the instructions in front of the patient, but I might mention a few points like the fact that the power of attorney can get access to the patient's medical records, which can be very helpful if the patient has to go to another healthcare institution. First, write the patient's name and address. Now, the agent. I always tell the patients that the agent should be someone they trust and rely on to make decisions. This does not necessarily have to be their spouse. Many patients choose a child rather than spouse to be the agent because the child is in the medical profession or speaks English better than the spouse, or is just more responsible than the spouse. It can be helpful to write on the form what the relationship of the agent is to the patient. It's not required, but can help other clinicians who use the form. The agent's address goes here. Sometimes the patient won't have this. It's good to get the address rather than leave this space blank or put not available in this space. My team and I used to call the agent to let him or her know they are the power of attorney and to make sure that's okay with them. And we would get the address and put it in this space. So if you don't have it, leave it blank for now. It doesn't matter if the agent is overseas and this number is really long, that's okay. The agent can be anywhere in the world as long as they have a cell phone. The checkbox for guardian is not often checked, but it gives the patient the opportunity to specify that their power of attorney should be appointed guardian if there needs to be a guardian for them. The first option is to start being the power of attorney when the patient is unable to make decisions for him or herself. Remember that the patient has to be decisional in order to fill out the form. But in this option, the agent will not start being the agent until the patient is non-decisional. The second option is to have the agent start being the agent now. If a patient chooses this option, I would always point out the sentence that says, "I can always make my own decisions if I want to." I say that because sometimes people think they're giving up their decision-making ability to their agent, but that is not the case. The patient is always in charge while they are decisional. On our form, we have a third option which specifies that the agent has access to the patient's medical records. Check this option if the patient wants this, and if the agent starts his or her agency only when the patient can no longer make decisions. The next section is optional. It gives the agent general guidance on the kind of end-of-life care the patient wants. Does the patient want his or her body to be kept alive by machines for as long as possible, no matter how sick they are? Or does the patient believe the quality of his or her life is more important than the length of his or her life? As I say, the patient does not have to fill this out, but it can be helpful for the power of attorney to know their wishes. Next, if there are any limitations the patient wants to put on the agent, something the patient does not want the agent to do, this can be written here. Some people will say, "I never want a feeding tube. I never want dialysis." I put instructions in this section on 2 occasions when the patient and agent disagreed on intubation. In both cases, the patient did not want to be intubated ever, but the agent was saying it would be good to try intubation. The patient had to write specifically that they were not to be intubated ever. The patient signs here. The patient must sign if at all possible. An X or other mark is adequate. If the patient absolutely cannot sign for one reason or other, I would write that in this space. Patient unable to sign, but I witnessed their decision. Then I would initial there, and then I would be the witness for the form. I would sign the witness area. The question of who can witness the form is important. It says right here, who cannot witness the form. The patient's physician cannot be a witness. Family cannot be a witness. If you are a doctor and this is not your patient, technically you can be a witness. But I encourage doctors to find a chaplain or nurse or social worker to be the witness, because it seems like kind of a gray area to me. Finally, alternate or successor agents are specified here. The patient names those who will be an alternate if the primary agent is not available or declines to carry out the duties of agent. Try to get some addresses. For sure, get phone numbers. Sometimes patients just couldn't remember the phone numbers for the agent or successor agents, and in that case, at least write down the names. Hopefully family will come to visit at some point and they can provide phone numbers. That's it for filling out the form. Next, make copies. We used to put 1 copy in the chart and give the original to the patient. We had to put stickers on the form with the patient's identifying number on it. Put the original and the instructions in an envelope and give the envelope to the patient. Don't forget to type the information in the electronic medical record as well. I think you'll find that performing this simple task for patients will help you get to know them a little better and develop trust, so you can talk about health matters or a plan of care. I always found it a good opening to see if the patient wanted to talk about what they were going through or if they wanted me to say a prayer with them. The only other detail I would like to add is that if someone is reluctant to fill out the form, at least get a verbal designation of power of attorney for health care and record that information in the medical record. In the hospital where I worked, a verbal designation was only good for the length of the current hospital stay, whereas a printed power of attorney form or power of attorney designation would remain in the chart for years. Also, the form can be changed at any time. If the patient wants to make a change, fill out a new form with them and record the new information in the chart. the most recent power of attorney information will apply. If the patient comes into the hospital with a form they filled out elsewhere, and if they have no changes, just make a copy for the patient's chart and type it in the medical record and give them back the original. Make sure the form was filled out correctly. Sometimes family members witness the form, which invalidates it, for instance. And that's all I can think of. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. This has been Dharma for Doctors, Spiritual Care for Caregivers. I'm your host, Chaplain Greg Holden. I wish you peace.